Vegas was once likened to a gold medal that anyone, whether a US resident or an international visitor, longed to obtain. However, by 2025, that medal is gradually losing its luster. It's no longer the promised land worth visiting once in a lifetime. What's left in Vegas now are only empty streets, shops closing en masse, hotels with empty rooms even during peak season, and suburban residential areas abandoned as if they've just been through a new pandemic. This is clearly not a temporary mood slump in the tourism industry, but the first sign of a subtle shift, a warning that the rest of America seems not to have yet recognized. A city that once thrived on an endless stream of money from tourists, casinos, entertainment, and real estate now faces the risk of becoming a ghost town in the 21st century. The cost of living is skyrocketing, crime is escalating, tourism is declining, businesses are fleeing, and real estate is in danger, all intertwined like a trap. And what's even scarier is, what Vegas is going through could just be a preview version of the future for dozens of other major cities. In today's video, we'll delve into the real reason why Las Vegas is taking on the appearance of a ghost town, and why that could be a warning for the entire United States. For decades, Las Vegas was like the must-do trip of a lifetime. A place people visited 2 or 3 times a year, or even more, due to the constant excitement, the sound of slot machines ringing like an endless soundtrack, hotels always fully booked, and streets bustling with activity. For many visitors, returning to Vegas is like holding a diamond-level membership card. Even if they don't always win at gambling, they still feel valued, treated specially, and welcomed into a world where everything is designed to make them feel like the main character. But from 2025, the numbers began to tell a different story. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, the number of visitors to Vegas decreased by approximately 6.9% compared to the same period last year, reaching around 9.7 million, a significant drop after years of recovery from the pandemic. In June, typically the peak of summer, Vegas welcomed about 400,000 fewer visitors than the previous year, a decrease of 11%, making it one of the worst Junes in nearly a decade. The emptiness isn't just apparent on the ground. Harry Reid Airport, the city's main gateway, also saw a prolonged decline. Passenger numbers decreased by 5.7% in July 2025, and by another 280,000 in August compared to the same period last year. When both the sky and the ground are deserted, the feeling that Las Vegas is taking on the appearance of a ghost town is no longer an exaggeration. While visitor numbers declined, the hotel market saw a paradox. Room occupancy and revenue per room decreased by double digits in the summer of 2025, yet average room rates increased slightly at the beginning of the year. This means fewer tourists, but those who remain have to pay more for each night's stay. There are reports that Caesars, one of Vegas's great icons, had over 90,000 vacant room nights in the third quarter as occupancy fell from 97% to 92%, a sign that the imbalance between real value and cost is becoming harder to conceal. A local restaurant owner said revenue was down 30–35% compared to the previous year. Customers were gradually disappearing, and tables were empty even during peak hours. For them, fewer customers isn't a statistical term, but rather each empty seat, each reduced work shift, each missed bill, and each employee meal cut. The obvious cause is easy to see. The price of everything is increasing faster than experience. Room fees, resort fees, parking fees, food, and drinks. All these costs add up, making what guests receive no longer commensurate with the amount of money they spend. Some reports note that the average room rate increased by over 3% in the first quarter of 2025, reaching approximately $84 per night before surcharges, even as the number of guests is declining. That's the kind of paradox that can only happen in a city accustomed to trying its luck on all fronts. But deeper than the layer of rising costs and longer bills, there is a breakdown in trust. The tourists who once loved Vegas the most Those who came here multiple times a year and considered the city their backyard are now the very ones missing from the party. They didn't just leave because it was expensive. They left because they no longer felt welcome, no longer felt worth the money they were spending. No one wants to sit down at a table where they believe the odds are always against them. And when these loyal visitors return less frequently, the entire Vegas ecosystem begins to shake. Small businesses lose their livelihoods, less attractive areas gradually become deserted, and the image of being empty of customers further discourages newcomers. A city that once thrived on returning visitors is now forced to rely more on major events. Short-term gambles rather than a long-term stable foundation. Las Vegas is used to people coming to try their luck. But in 2025, it seems the new city is the one testing its luck. With a hand, they could lose more than they realize. For many years, Las Vegas carried a very American promise. Play big, but don't worry about the price. Cheap hotel rooms, cheap buffets, free parking, generously refilled drinks. All of this creates the feeling that this city is always open-armed, as if all you have to do is step foot here, and Vegas will take care of the rest. Many people call this the customer-friendly city, where the value received always exceeds the cost incurred. But that feeling, a feeling that once defined Vegas, is fading quickly. What replaced it was no longer the familiar generosity, but a model of meticulous accounting at every step. From 2024 to 2025, not only will resort fees and room rates increase, but they will also increase at a time when the tourism industry is weak. Many statistics record a decrease of approximately 6.5–7.3% in the number of visitors in the first half of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024, equivalent to nearly 1 million fewer visitors. However, the average room rate for hotels on the Strip still crept up, as if the city refused to lower prices, only reduce occupancy. For many older visitors who are used to old Vegas, this feels like they are stepping into a new version of the city they no longer recognize. Not only the rooms, but the cost of food also skyrocketed in a shocking way. Restaurant prices in Nevada are recorded as having increased by over 27% from the beginning of 2020 to mid-2024, one of the strongest increases in the United States. For tourists, it's not about the numbers, but the fact that a simple meal can cost 20–30% more than a few years ago, while the quality remains the same. Expensive because of inflation is one thing. Expensive without being worth it is another. Vegas's price increases also contribute to the fading goodwill. A series of investigations revealed that many stores within the casino employ surge pricing, increasing prices by the hour, by traffic volume, and even by event. A bottle of water or a sandwich can change price in just a few hours, and these items are rarely publicly listed. The buyer only knows the truth when standing at the checkout counter. For many, it felt more like being trapped than served. The Vegas experience, built to evoke a sense of exhilaration, now makes them as cautious as when reading contract terms. Unsurprisingly, in many recent travel surveys, nearly 90% of visitors rated Vegas as too expensive, and many experts frankly consider unreasonable prices the main reason for the nearly 8–11% drop in visitor numbers in 2025. Vegas is being redefined in the public eye. No longer a value destination, it's becoming a test of wallet endurance. Meanwhile, small businesses, local restaurants, casual buffets are still trying to maintain human prices. They don't charge a resort fee, there's no surge pricing, and no hidden fees. But that kindness inadvertently exposed a stark contrast. The issue wasn't that everything had to increase, but who chose to increase and how. It's a fine line between price increases due to cost and price increases because they can be increased. More and more observers believe this shift is not natural. It's like a deliberate strategy, maximizing revenue per visitor who has already arrived, rather than keeping prices low so they'll want to return. And when tourists feel the fee system is designed with the "since you're already here, you have to pay" logic, trust begins to erode layer by layer. The consequences are already evident in the most sensitive areas: workers. Many tipped workers say their income has decreased by over 50% due to fewer customers and lower tips, while the tax credit for tips is not enough to compensate. This is a vivid illustration of the familiar cycle. High prices lead to unhappy customers. Unhappy customers lead to fewer tips and less spending. And the first people to suffer are not the casino owners, but the employees trying to hold on to their weekly income. Finally, the gap between Vegas and the very people who once sustained it is widening. The city sees tourists as a revenue stream to be optimized, while tourists see Vegas as a hidden cost equation to be avoided. And that gap, once it opens, is rarely filled by a few promotional programs or a grand show. If Las Vegas continues to prioritize profit optimization over guests' sense of fairness and worth, what will keep visitors coming back? And is this a model that other cities across America are quietly following, optimizing people's wallets before realizing the highest cost is the trust that's been lost? For Las Vegas, the F1 race was once seen as a golden opportunity to put the city on the map of global luxury event hosts. But as 2025 approaches, more and more people are realizing that this opportunity comes at a very high price, not just in money, but in how the city treats the very people who feed it every day. For both residents and loyal visitors, F1 is like the straw that broke the camel's back, bringing to a head the inconveniences, disruptions, and feelings of being sidelined. The event's massive scale creates unavoidable disruptions in daily life. Roads are blocked, sidewalks are closed, and even the shortest journeys require detours that are 2 or 3 times longer. What was once freedom of movement, a part of Vegas's soul, suddenly became a daily challenge. Even tourists who are accustomed to the crowds of the Strip said they had never seen a Vegas so congested and difficult to access. Public spaces, which were once considered common areas, are now fenced off, altered, and even framed as if the entire city is being redeveloped for a single purpose. But the biggest impact of F1 isn't about the noise or the barriers. It lies in its symbolic meaning. For many, this is clear evidence that Las Vegas is willing to sacrifice the experience of the majority, residents, ordinary tourists, local workers, in exchange for the satisfaction of a small group with higher economic value. A subtle but sharp shift. From the city for everyone to the city that prioritizes luxury customers. Even those working on the front lines, drivers, hotel staff, bartenders, waiters, clearly feel that shift. Their income decreased as tourists avoided the F1 season or stayed away from blocked areas. A few weeks of events can make hundreds of their working hours disappear. Some say that during the F1 season, instead of receiving more tips as expected, they saw a decrease because fewer customers came, and those who did stay were tired, rushed, and didn't stay long enough to spend as much as before. In the eyes of many residents, F1 has become a symbol of a new Las Vegas model, one that prioritizes luxury events, major brands, and expensive experiences over the daily life that has sustained the city's stability for decades. They fear that Las Vegas is pushing itself out of the group of cities that thrive on experience in order to chase short-term gambling where benefits are uneven and losses rarely fall on those with weaker voices. If this trend continues, F1 could become more than just a sporting event. It could become a landmark marking the transformation, or the decline, of Las Vegas. A city once built on friendliness and generosity, but now increasingly operated as a giant corporation, where decisions are made not based on the feelings of residents, but on the profit charts of those behind the scenes. If the decline in domestic visitors created the first cracks on the surface of Las Vegas, the withdrawal of international visitors was like the foundation slowly but surely being eroded. For many years, Canada, Europe, and Asia have been the three most important sources of visitors. Not just because they are numerous, but because they spend more, stay longer, and view Vegas as a ritualistic destination. But as the global economic context changed, that flow of tourists began to weaken in a way that was so pronounced, it was difficult to deny. The first reason lies in the total cost of travel. International airfares have surged since the pandemic, with fuel volatility and pilot shortages causing prices from London, Toronto, Tokyo, or Seoul to increase by hundreds of dollars in just a few years. Adding to the exchange rate difference between USD and other currencies, the trip to Vegas suddenly became a much heavier financial decision than before. For many families, that cost is no longer reasonable, especially when they realize that the experience in Vegas today isn't different enough to justify the large amount of money spent. Many international passengers frankly share that Las Vegas is no longer worth flying far for. They found that the experience in this city, from dining and entertainment to services, was no longer as outstanding compared to alternative destinations like Singapore, Dubai, Bangkok, or Barcelona. When a city loses its competitive advantage, geographical distance suddenly becomes a very real reason for tourists to consider new options. The absence of international tourists also has a direct impact on mid-range and high-end businesses, segments that rely on high-spending customers. Performances, fine dining restaurants, fashion boutiques, experiential services all heavily rely on the presence of non-American guests. When they stopped coming as often, Las Vegas was forced to face the reality that its premium revenue was no longer as certain as before. And once customers find destinations that are cheaper, more accessible, or more appealing, their return is no longer a certainty. This is not a group of customers who are accustomed to going to Vegas multiple times a year like Americans. For them, distance and cost are real barriers. As that barrier increased, the connection between them and Las Vegas became thinner than ever. What's more concerning is that this decline isn't happening in isolation. It coincided with a decline in domestic tourists, forming a pincer grip that tightened the pace of life throughout the city. One side loses customers due to rising costs and declining experiences. The other side loses customers due to distance and global competition. And when both of them withdrew, the empty space they left behind was not easily filled. Las Vegas used to be the place the world went to forget reality. But today, the world is choosing to go elsewhere. And that's the signal that makes many people feel most uneasy. If you want to feel the changes in Las Vegas most clearly in 2025, just walk through Fremont or stroll along the Strip during rush hour. The once crowded streets, where cigarette smoke mingled with the aroma of food and music blared from every direction, now feature long stretches of silence. Even after the sun had set and the neon lights were at full power, many streets remained so quiet that they created visual voids that were previously almost unimaginable. For those familiar with Las Vegas of the 90s or 2000s, the feeling is like seeing a familiar body but lacking the life force that once made it vibrant. This silence isn't just a feeling. In the shopping centers around the Strip, once a symbol of hustle and bustle, empty storefronts are becoming increasingly common. Some stores open later, some close earlier, and some are simply not open anymore. This reflects an unavoidable reality. Demand has decreased, passenger traffic has thinned, and there is no longer enough reason to maintain the old operating pace. This scene creates a two-story Las Vegas. Inside some of the large hotel casinos, visitors are still plentiful. Blackjack tables are still crowded, and the winning sounds of slot machines still ring out as reassurance that Vegas is doing just fine. But just a few hundred meters outside, the atmosphere changes completely. The streets are almost empty, shops have few customers, and street corners become quiet as if cut off from the city's main flow. That contrast makes many people feel that the walking journey, which is part of the soul of Vegas, is less appealing, losing the seamlessness that once defined the quintessential experience. Witnessing the disparity between areas just a few steps apart, many people began to ask the difficult question: what is the true face of Las Vegas right now? Are the hotel's interior spaces still crowded and vibrant? Or are the outer streets, once the heart of the Vegas experience, now becoming unexpected voids? What's happening in Las Vegas is inseparable from a larger picture. The picture of an America where more and more people feel they are working harder than ever, but have less to save. Across the country, a wave of quiet layoffs in many industries, runaway inflation, and declining consumer confidence are making the concept of discretionary spending a luxury. What was once a natural part of life, dining out, short trips, a few nights of entertainment, has now become a calculation that must be carefully considered line by line. For a city like Vegas, this is particularly harsh. Las Vegas is not a place for essential needs. It thrives on impulsive spending, spontaneous decisions, and the extras Americans are willing to spend on enjoyment after a long, hard week. When that surplus disappeared, the first dollars cut were always in entertainment, and Vegas was the direct route to that. In conversations with older tourists, there's a recurring phrase: "I don't have any extra money for small expenses anymore." Those small expenses, a cocktail, a simple show ticket, a few chips to try your luck, turned out to be the lifeblood of Vegas. When Americans no longer felt comfortable with those expenses, Vegas didn't just lose money, it lost the lifeblood that had sustained the city for decades. For families struggling with rising rent, gas, and food prices, a Vegas vacation becomes the easiest option to eliminate. Despite loving this place, they also understand that the feeling of being able to spend freely, which once made Vegas liberating and generous, is no longer suitable for the context of an unstable life. Vegas hasn't changed, but tourist wallets have changed too much. If this trend continues, Las Vegas could become the earliest test case, a mirror reflecting directly onto the resilience of the American economy. Because Vegas is always the city that reflects the fastest what other places take years to see. When Vegas is empty, it's not just about a city. It's a reminder that Americans are changing the way they live, the way they spend, and the way they face the future. Las Vegas has never been just a destination. It used to be a promise that no matter where you came from, what your past was, there was always a bright spot for you here. But in 2025, that promise is wavering. It's not because the lights are dimming, but because the gaps between people are widening. The Strip still shines, but the emotions are looser. Tourists still come, but with less faith. The city still functions, but its soul seems to be struggling not to be swallowed by the cold decisions of the times. Perhaps the most important question isn't in Vegas. It lies in what Vegas reflects about America in 2025. An older, more anxious America trying to rediscover a sense of connection. If a city built on light has become empty and cold, what are we losing? Vegas, or the very image of America we once believed in? And when the places that once made us feel welcome now seem distant, will our future still have room for warmth and kindness? If this story resonates with your experience or reminds you of what America once was and might still be, please leave a comment to share your perspective. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone interested in the future of our country. Because sometimes a story about Vegas isn't just about Vegas, but about ourselves. The content in this video is based on public information sources, press data, expert opinions, and community feedback. The purpose of the video is not to make absolute assertions or draw legal conclusions, but rather to provide an analytical perspective and reflect on ongoing socio-economic trends. All opinions in the video are for reference only and do not represent any organization, individual, or agency. The video is not intended to assign blame, attack, or judge any group or individual in society. Viewers are encouraged to cross-reference additional information from multiple independent sources before drawing their own conclusions. This video is for sharing perspectives only. It is not financial, legal, or public policy advice.